My phone buzzed against the counter while I was scrubbing dried turf out of my daughter's cleats. Lila did not yell. She just sat on her bed, hands shaking, and turned her screen toward me. $378. That was all that remained where $4,200 used to be. When I asked who touched her account, she whispered one word that made my stomach go cold. Grandma. My name is Haley Ward, and until yesterday, I thought the hardest part of my week was going to be scrubbing the stubborn, dried-on clay out of a dozen pairs of varsity soccer cleats. I was standing in the garage, the smell of damp earth and rubber filling the cool air, attacking the soles of a striker's shoe with a stiff, bristled brush. It was a mindless, rhythmic chore that usually let my brain decompress after a long day managing the athletic program at Crestview High. But then my phone started buzzing against the metal workbench. It wasn't a rhythmic notification buzz. It was a frantic, continuous vibration that rattled against the tools, signaling that the world outside my garage had decided to tilt off its axis. I wiped my hands on a rag and checked the screen. It was not a call. It was a text from upstairs, from the room directly above my head. Mom, please come here. No emojis, no exclamation points. Just 3 words that carried a terrifying weight because my daughter, Lila, never texted like that. Lila was 16 years old, a creature of exclamation marks, memes, and rapid-fire updates about her day. This silence between the words felt heavy. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my heart doing that anxious flutter every parent knows, the one that anticipates broken bones or broken hearts. When I pushed open her bedroom door, the room was too quiet. Lila was sitting on the edge of her bed, her knees pulled up to her chest, her face pale. She was not crying, which frightened me more than tears would have. She looked like she was trying to make herself small, like she was the one who had done something wrong. Lila? I asked, keeping my voice level. What is it? She didn't speak. She just held out her phone. Her hand was shaking so badly the screen blurred for a second before my eyes could focus on the banking app open before me. It was her savings account, the one she had proudly nicknamed France in all capital letters the day we opened it 3 years ago. I stared at the balance, $378. I blinked, waiting for the numbers to rearrange themselves into something that made sense. I knew what that number was supposed to be. I knew it down to the cent because Lila updated me on it every Friday after she cashed her babysitting money. It was supposed to be $4,578. Where is it? I asked, my voice sounding strange in my own ears. Lila, where is the rest of it? She swiped a finger across the glass, scrolling down to the transaction history. There was a single line item dated for yesterday. Withdrawal? Cashier's check. $4,200. I went to the branch today after school, Lila whispered. Her voice was thin, brittle. I just wanted to deposit the $40 from Mrs. Higgins. The teller, she looked at me weird. She asked if I knew about the withdrawal. Lila took a shaky breath. I told her I didn't touch it. I told her I was saving for the trip. And she said it was okay because the authorized adult on the account signed for it in person. The room seemed to drop 10 degrees. I felt the blood drain from my face. Who? Lila? I asked, though I already knew. The answer was sitting in my gut like a stone. Grandma, she said. The word hung in the air between us. Toxic and impossible. Grandma, my mother, Darlene. Lila finally broke. It wasn't a scream. It was a soft, defeated sound that tore right through my chest. She let the phone drop onto the duvet. It's gone. Mom, that was 3 years. That was every Friday night I didn't go to the movies. That was every Saturday I spent watching the Miller kids while everyone else went to the lake. I babysat when I had the flu. I saved every single birthday check. It's all gone. I looked at my daughter. I saw the 16-year-old girl who had worn the same pair of sneakers for 2 years because she didn't want to dip into her travel fund. I saw the girl who had pasted a picture of the Eiffel Tower on her mirror to remind herself why she was changing diapers and cleaning up spilled juice while her friends were being teenagers. She had done everything right. She had been responsible. She had trusted the adults in her world to protect her, and the adult she trusted was my mother. A strange sensation washed over me. I expected to feel hot, fiery rage. I expected to want to throw something against the wall, but instead, a cold, clinical clarity settled over me. It was a freezing calm. It was the kind of feeling you get when you realize the car is skidding on ice and panic will only kill you faster. You have to steer into the slide. My mother had walked into a bank, looked a teller in the eye, and drained her granddaughter's life savings. She hadn't asked. She hadn't explained. She had just taken it, presumably because she felt entitled to it, because in Darlene's world, family money was a fluid concept, usually flowing toward whoever screamed the loudest. I remembered the day we opened that account. Lila was 13. The bank required a cosigner. I had been at work, stuck in a mandatory district meeting, so I had asked my mom to take Lila. It's just a formality, I had told myself. It's just to get the paperwork done. I had signed the papers later, but Darlene stayed on as a joint owner because removing her seemed like a hassle we didn't need to deal with. A hassle. That administrative laziness just cost my daughter $4,200. Lila was wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her hoodie, looking at me with a terrified expectation. She was waiting for me to tell her it was a mistake. Or worse, she was waiting for me to tell her to understand. To tell her that Grandma probably had a good reason, that we needed to be patient, that we needed to keep the peace, because that is what I had done my entire life. I was Haley the peacemaker, Haley the fixer. When my sister Brenna needed bail money for a stupidity charge, I paid it. When my mom needed a new roof she couldn't afford, I took out a loan. I absorbed the shock so the family structure wouldn't collapse. But looking at Lila's devastated face, I realized the structure was already rotten. I reached out and took the phone from the bed. I took a screenshot of the balance. Then I took a screenshot of the withdrawal. "Get up," I said. Lila looked up, startled by the flatness of my tone. "What?" "Put your shoes on," I said. "We are going to see her right now." "Mom," she said. Lila swallowed hard. "She told the teller it was for a family emergency." "The only emergency," I said, walking to her closet and grabbing her sneakers, tossing them gently toward her, "is that she thinks she can get away with this." We walked out to the car in silence. The evening air was crisp, biting. I unlocked the SUV and waited for Lila to climb in. As I backed out of the driveway, the garage door rumbling shut behind us, I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The drive to my mother's house was 20 minutes of highway and 5 minutes of suburban winding roads. Usually, I use this drive to prepare my mental armor, to ready myself for the passive-aggressive comments about my job, my single status, or my hair. I usually spent these 20 minutes rehearsing ways to deflect and de-escalate. Not tonight. Tonight, I let the memories flood in. I thought about the time Darlene borrowed $500 from my college fund to pay for Brenna's modeling classes. Classes Brenna quit after 2 weeks. I thought about the time my mother guilted me into hosting Thanksgiving 3 years in a row because Brenna was too stressed, costing me thousands in groceries and wine. I had always paid the tax, the family tax. The price of admission to be a ward woman was that you gave until you were empty, and you did it with a smile so the neighbors wouldn't talk. But they hadn't just taxed me this time. They had taxed Lila. They had looked at a child's hard work, a child's dream, and decided it was less important than whatever crisis Darlene had manufactured this week. I glanced over at Lila in the passenger seat. She was staring out the window, her reflection ghosting against the dark glass. She looked older than she had an hour ago. The innocence was gone, replaced by the hard, cynical realization that the people who are supposed to love you are capable of robbing you blind. I merged onto the highway, pressing my foot down on the accelerator. The speedometer climbed. 60, 65, 70. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to cry. I was done being the daughter they recognized. The woman driving this car was someone else entirely. I was a mother first, and a daughter second. And God helped Darlene when she opened that door. Because I wasn't bringing peace. I was bringing the receipt. To understand why my mother felt comfortable stealing from a teenager, you have to understand the ecosystem of the Ward family. I have spent my entire adult life trying to build a separate world for myself and Lila. A world built on the solid ground of sweat equity and clear contracts. I am a single mother who manages the athletic program at Crestview High, a job that requires the logistical precision of an air traffic controller. On weekends, I do not rest. I run conditioning clinics at Ward Peak Performance, a private coaching business I started from nothing to help kids get college scholarships. My life is measured in whistleblows, clipboard schedules, and the smell of deep heat muscle rub. Ideal in reality. If you run the mile, you get the time. If you score the goal, you get the point. My mother, Darlene, lives in a different reality entirely. Darlene is a woman who speaks in cursive. She is soft, powdered, and smells of lavender and passive aggression. She has never raised her voice in her life because she knows that a well-placed sigh is far more destructive. In Darlene's world, facts are malleable, and boundaries are just suggestions that selfish people make to hurt the family. And the sun around which Darlene's entire universe orbits is my younger sister, Brenna. Brenna is 30 years old, but in our family dynamic, she is perpetually 6. She is the protagonist of every room she enters. If Brenna has a headache, the world must lower its volume. If Brenna is happy, we are all mandated to celebrate. If Brenna is short on rent, it is a crisis that requires a family summit. For as long as I can remember, my role has been the sturdy infrastructure that keeps Brenna's chaotic show on the road. Lila's role, unfortunately, has been to sit in the audience and clap. I gripped the steering wheel, the leather biting into my palms. As a memory from 4 years ago clawed its way to the surface, it was Lila's 12th birthday. We had reserved a table at her favorite Italian place, the one with the garlic knots she loved. It was supposed to be her night, but 20 minutes in, Brenna arrived, eyes swollen, mascara running down her cheeks. Her boyfriend of 3 weeks had not texted her back since the morning. That was the tragedy. Darlene immediately shifted focus. She pulled a chair close to Brenna, cooing, stroking her hair, and analyzing the text messages with the intensity of a forensic team. Lila sat there with a party hat on, her garlic knots getting cold, watching her grandmother and aunt dismantle her birthday dinner. I tried to steer the conversation back to Lila, asking about her friends, but Darlene just shushed me, saying Brenna was in a fragile state. I watched my daughter that night. I saw the exact moment the light went out of her eyes. She didn't cry. She didn't throw a fit. She just learned to smile, that tight, polite smile, the one that says, "I will make myself smaller so I do not inconvenience you." It broke my heart then, and the memory of it made my blood boil now. The pattern never stopped. 2 years ago, I landed the program manager position at Crestview. It was a massive promotion, one that came with a raise I desperately needed to fix the transmission on my car. I called my mother, bursting with pride, wanting just 1 minute of validation. I remembered her voice on the phone clearly. She said that was wonderful news, really wonderful. And then, without taking a breath, she said that since I would be making so much more money, I could finally contribute the deposit for Brenna's engagement party catering. She didn't ask if I wanted to. She framed it as an opportunity for me to finally be useful. The joy of my promotion evaporated in 10 seconds, replaced by the familiar weight of obligation. Lila saw all of this. And unlike Brenna, Lila decided early on that she would not be a person who needed saving. She started babysitting when she was 13 years old. She treated it like a military operation. She bought a stiff black ledger from the pharmacy and logged every single hour. She recorded the date, the family name, the start time, the end time, and the exact amount earned down to the quarter. She missed Friday night football games to watch the Thompson twins. She skipped the homecoming dance her freshman year because the Miller family needed an overnight sitter and the pay was double time. That money was not an allowance. It was sweat. It was missed childhood. It was a tangible metric of her discipline. The irony of the situation hit me as I turned the car onto the main road leading to Darlene's subdivision. The reason my mother could access that money was born out of my own exhaustion. 3 years ago, when Lila wanted to open the account, I was swamped with the district playoffs. I was working 14-hour days. I couldn't get to the bank during business hours. Darlene, in a rare moment of helpfulness, offered to take Lila on a Saturday morning. It seemed like a kindness. I signed the paperwork later, but the bank officer suggested keeping Darlene on as an authorized adult just in case Lila lost her debit card or needed emergency access while I was working. "It is just easier," the banker had said. "It is just for backup," my mother had said. I had signed the paper because I was tired and I wanted to trust that my mother was a grandmother before she was a predator. I made a mistake that no spreadsheet could fix. I left the door unlocked. Now, the timeline made sickening sense. Brenna's wedding is scheduled for the summer of 2026. It is not just a wedding. In Darlene's mind, it is a coronation. It has to be at the historic Vineyard Estate. There have to be live peonies, not silk ones. The menu has to be filet mignon, not chicken. Darlene has been manic about this wedding for months, terrified that our extended family will see anything less than perfection and realize that the Wards are not American royalty, but just regular people living paycheck to paycheck. They were drowning in deposit deadlines. I knew Brenna didn't have the money. She spent her paycheck on clothes before the direct deposit even hit. I knew Darlene didn't have the liquid cash. She lived on a fixed pension and credit card fumes, so they looked for a resource. They didn't see a 16-year-old girl's college trip. They didn't see 3 years of changing diapers and heating up macaroni and cheese. They saw a line item with a positive balance. They saw $4,200 sitting there, doing nothing, and they decided their immediate vanity was more important than my daughter's future. I looked at Lila again. She was scrolling through her phone, probably looking at photos of Paris, torturing herself with what she thought she had lost. I made a silent vow when I divorced Lila's father. I promised that I would break the cycle of women in my family shrinking themselves to fit into the spaces men left for them, but I had failed to protect her from the women. I had let Darlene and Brenna treat Lila like an extra in their movie for too long. Lila thought this drive was about getting an explanation. She didn't understand yet. We were not going there to hear Darlene spin a web of excuses about how she would pay it back when her tax refund came, or how family helps family. I turned the blinker on, the clicking sound loud in the quiet cabin. I was done helping. I was done with the smiling, the nodding, the keeping of the peace. The peace had cost my daughter $4,200. That was too high a price. Tonight, the peace ended, and the war began. Darlene's house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, blazing with light. Every window was illuminated, and the porch light was so bright it cast long, sharp shadows across the manicured lawn. It looked less like a home and more like a stage set waiting for the actors to take their places. My mother opened the door before I even had the chance to knock. She was dressed in her evening casual wear, pressed linen trousers and a cashmere cardigan, holding a glass of white wine as if she were hosting a book club rather than facing her daughter and granddaughter, whom she had just robbed. She didn't look surprised. She looked ready. She stood in the doorway, blocking the view into the living room, her face arranged in a mask of patient suffering. "I had a feeling you would be coming over," she said. Her voice was steady, calm, the voice of a woman who had rehearsed her lines in the mirror. She didn't move to let us in. She just stood there, sipping her Chardonnay. I didn't waste time with greetings. I didn't ask how she was. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, unlocked it, and held the screen inches from her face. The brightness of the screen illuminated the wrinkles around her eyes. "Explain this," I said. My voice was lower than usual, stripped of any warmth. Darlene glanced at the transaction history, the withdrawal of $4,200, and then looked back at me with a maddening lack of concern. She waved her hand dismissively, the wine in her glass sloshing dangerously close to the rim. "Oh, that," she said. She said it the way one might talk about a library book they forgot to return, or a coupon that had expired. I was going to call you about that tomorrow when things settled down. You were going to call me tomorrow, I repeated, fighting the urge to grab the doorframe to steady myself. You emptied Lila's account yesterday. You didn't think that warranted a conversation before you did it? I didn't empty it. Haley, don't be dramatic, Darlene sighed, finally stepping back to let us into the foyer. I borrowed it. There is a difference. We stepped inside. The house smelled of lemon polish and the expensive candles she always burned, a smell that used to mean comfort to me but now made my stomach turn. Lila stayed close to my side, her shoulder pressing against my arm. Borrowed it for what? I asked. What emergency was so dire that you couldn't ask me? What happened that you had to walk into a bank and impersonate a guardian acting in a child's best interest? Darlene set her wine glass down on the entry table with a sharp click. She turned to face us, clasping her hands together. It wasn't an emergency. It was a necessity. I needed to put the deposit down for the venue for Brenna's reception, the Vineyard Estate. They had a cancellation for the June date, and they needed the cashier's check immediately or we would lose the spot. The air left the room. You took $4,000 from your 16-year-old granddaughter to pay for a party venue? I asked, enunciating every word. It is not just a party, Haley, Darlene snapped, her facade of calm slipping just an inch. It is your sister's wedding. It is the most important day of her life. We have to keep up appearances. The groom's family is coming from Connecticut. Do you want us to look like paupers? Do you want Brenna to be humiliated in a community hall? Lila stepped forward. Her hands were clenched into fists at her sides. I could see her trembling. That was my money, Lila said. Her voice was small but clear. Grandma, that was for my school trip. That was 3 years of work. Darlene looked at Lila. Her expression softened, but it wasn't the softness of apology. It was the condescending softness of an adult, explaining the world to a toddler. She reached out as if to touch Lila's cheek, but Lila recoiled. Oh, honey, Darlene cooed. I know you're disappointed, but listen to Grandma for a second. You are 16 years old. You have your whole life to go to France. Paris isn't going anywhere. But Brenna? This is it. A wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event. It has to be perfect. When you get married one day, you will understand the pressure. We all have to make sacrifices for family. I watched my daughter shrink. Darlene was doing what she always did, weaponizing time and family values to minimize everyone else's needs. She was telling Lila that her dreams were deferrable, that her hard work was secondary to Brenna's vanity. Stop, I said. It wasn't a request. It was a command. Darlene looked at me, blinked. Excuse me? Lila is not making a sacrifice, I said, stepping between them. A sacrifice is voluntary. This was theft. You stole from a child to pay for a venue you can't afford. I held out my hand. Show me the receipt. Darlene stiffened. What? You said you paid the deposit, I said. Show me the receipt from the Vineyard Estate. Show me the contract. If you used Lila's money for the wedding, there is a paper trail. Give it to me. Darlene's face flushed a blotchy red. She hated being questioned on specifics. She operated in the realm of vague promises and emotional blackmail. Not hard data. I don't have it right here. It is in my files. Why are you interrogating me? I am your mother, not a criminal. That is debatable right now, I said. I pulled my phone back up. I swiped to the camera app and switched it to video. I saw the little red dot appear on the screen, counting the seconds. I held the phone up, aiming it squarely at her. What are you doing? Darlene's voice jumped an octave. She raised a hand to cover her face, instinctively terrified of the lens. Put that away. You cannot record me in my own house. I am documenting this conversation, I said calmly. Since you like to rewrite history, I am making sure we have an accurate record. State it for the camera. Darlene, Tell the camera that you took $4,200 from Lila's account without permission to pay for Brenna's wedding venue. Haley, stop it. She lunged slightly but stopped when I didn't flinch. You are being ridiculous. Put the phone down. Don't make a scene in front of the child. I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. The child? I asked, keeping the camera steady. You mean the victim? You mean the person you just looked in the eye and told that her 3 years of labor matter less than a centerpieces and a DJ? You don't get to use her as a shield. You lost that privilege when you signed that withdrawal slip. Darlene turned her back to the camera, walking rapidly toward the kitchen. I am done with this. You are hysterical. I will pay it back when I can. Maybe after the tax returns come in, or maybe Brenna's fiancé can help later. But I will not be treated like this. When? I asked her, retreating back. Give me a date. I don't know, she shouted from the kitchen, the mask completely gone now. When I have it. Why are you so obsessed with money? It's vulgar. Haley, you are acting just like your father. I lowered the phone and stopped the recording. I had what I needed. I had the admission. I had the deflection. I had the proof that she had no plan to pay it back immediately. She was kicking the can down the road, hoping we would get tired of chasing it. She thought this was an emotional fight. She thought we would yell, cry, maybe hug it out uncomfortably, and then she would get away with it because family forgives. She didn't realize that I had stopped operating on emotion the moment I walked through the door. I wasn't looking for an apology anymore. I was building a case. I turned to Lila. She was standing by the door, looking at her grandmother's turned back with a mixture of grief and disbelief. Let's go, I said. But Mom, Lila started, her voice choking. She didn't. I know, I said. We are leaving. I opened the front door. The cold night air rushed in, cleansing the stale scent of Darlene's perfume. Haley, Darlene called out from the kitchen, sensing that the dynamic had shifted in a way she didn't like. If you walk out, don't expect me to come crawling. You are being incredibly selfish. I didn't answer. I shut the door firmly behind us. We walked back to the car in silence. I could hear Darlene's words echoing, selfish, vulgar, hysterical, old triggers that used to make me crumble. But tonight, they bounced off. I started the engine and looked at the dashboard clock. It was 7:45. The banks were closed. The lawyers were home, but the internet was open. Mom? Lila asked, as we pulled away from the curb. Is that it? Is the money just gone? I reached over and squeezed her hand. My palm was cool, dry. No, I said. That wasn't the end. That was just the deposition. I drove toward home, my mind already organizing folders, scanning documents, and drafting emails. Darlene wanted to play games with money? Fine, but she forgot one thing. I manage budgets for a living. I track compliance for a district, and I was about to audit her entire existence. When we got home, the house felt different. It was the same hallway, the same kitchen island where Lila usually did her homework, but the safety had been sucked out of the air. It felt like a fortress with a breached gate. Lila went straight to her room, and I did not stop her. She needed to mourn. I needed to work. I sat down at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. The screen's blue light cut through the dark room. I created a new folder on my desktop. I did not name it Grandma or Theft. I named it Lila/France/2026. I started with the raw data. I transferred the screenshots from my phone, the balance history, the withdrawal notification, and the timestamp of when the money vanished. Then, I asked Lila to bring me her babysitting ledger. She brought it down, her eyes red-rimmed, and placed it on the table like it was an artifact from a lost civilization. I spent the next 2 hours digitizing her labor. I took high-resolution photos of every single page. August 12th, 4 hours, $60. September 4th, 6 hours, $90. Page after page of Friday nights she had traded for a dream. I scanned the email from the school outlining the trip itinerary. The Louvre, the Seine, the train to Nice. I saved everything. By the time I closed the laptop, it was 2 in the morning. I had a digital paper trail that told a very clear story. A child earned money, and an adult took it. The next morning, I did not go to work. I called in a personal day, something I never did, and drove straight to the bank branch where the transaction had taken place. I sat in the glass-walled office of the branch manager, a man named Mr. Henderson, who looked like he would rather be anywhere else than dealing with a furious mother. I had been a customer at this bank for 15 years. He knew me, but today, the familiarity was gone, replaced by a stiff corporate defense mechanism. "I need to remove Darlene Ward from the account immediately," I said, "and I want to file a fraud report for an unauthorized withdrawal of $4,200. Mr. Henderson sighed, tapping his keyboard. "Mrs. Ward, we can certainly remove her from the account moving forward, but regarding the fraud report, that is complicated." "How is it complicated?" I asked, keeping my hands folded on the desk to stop them from shaking. "My daughter did not authorize it. I did not authorize it." "But Darlene was a joint owner on the account," he said, turning the monitor slightly so I could see. "See here? She had full signing privileges. She came into the branch, presented valid identification, and requested a cashier's check. According to the bank's internal policy, she acted within her rights as an account holder. It is a civil dispute between owners, not bank fraud." I felt the heat rising up my neck. "Internal policy," I repeated. "Yes," he said, looking relieved that I seemed to understand. "Since she was authorized, we cannot classify this as theft." I leaned forward. "Mr. Henderson, if I give you the keys to my car to park it, and you drive it to Mexico and sell it, you have still stolen my car. Internal policy does not change the law. She misappropriated funds that did not belong to her. Now, I am not asking you to arrest her. I am asking you for the documentation." I held out my hand. "I want a copy of the withdrawal slip. I want a copy of the cashier's check she had issued. I want to see exactly who she made it out to." He hesitated. "I can give you the withdrawal slip. The check image usually that requires a subpoena if it is not your signature." "It is my daughter's account," I said, my voice dropping to that dangerous calm I used on unruly student-athletes. "I am the primary custodian. Give me the paper, or I will close every account I have here, including the Crestview High Athletic Fund, and I will tell the school board exactly why." 5 minutes later, I walked out with a manila envelope. I sat in my car and opened it. The withdrawal slip was written in my mother's unmistakable, looping handwriting, but it was the photocopy of the cashier's check request that made me pause. Pay to the order of Darlene Ward. She hadn't made it out to the venue. She had made it out to herself. That was a detail I filed away immediately. If it was for the venue, why wash it through her own hands first? I sat there in the parking lot and made the next move, one that felt like a betrayal of blood, but a necessity of war. I pulled up the websites for the 3 major credit bureaus on my phone. My mother had Lila's social security number. She had her birth date. She had used Lila's identity to open the savings account with me. Yesterday proved that Darlene viewed Lila not as a person, but as a resource. I initiated a credit freeze on Lila's file. I locked down her identity so tight that nobody could open a credit card, take out a loan, or even buy a cell phone plan in her name. It was a dark thought, that a grandmother might open a line of credit in her grandchild's name to fund a wedding. But I was done taking chances. I was closing the blast doors. My next call was to the school. This was the hardest one. I had to swallow my pride. "Hi, this is Haley Ward," I said when the trip coordinator picked up. "I am calling about the first payment installment for the France trip. It is due this Friday." "Yes, Haley," the coordinator said. "We are finalizing the roster. Is everything okay?" Lila seemed so excited. "She is," I lied. "She is thrilled, but we have had a banking error. A security issue with the account that has frozen the funds temporarily. I am sorting it out with the fraud department, but I might need an extension of a few days for the transfer to clear." I hated the lie. I hated that Darlene's greed had forced me to beg for time. "Oh, I see," the coordinator said. There was a pause. "Well, the airline deadline is strict. Haley, if we don't have the deposit by Monday at noon, the spot opens up to the wait list. I can hold it until then, but that is the absolute latest." "Monday is fine," I said, though I had no idea how I would replace $4,000 in 4 days. "Thank you," when I picked Lila up from school that afternoon. She looked exhausted. She climbed into the passenger seat and didn't even reach for the radio. "I talked to the bank," I told her. "Grandma is off the account. She can never touch your money again, and I froze your credit, just to be safe." Lila stared at her lap. She was picking at a loose thread on her jeans. "Mom," she said softly, maybe I should have hidden the statement better, or maybe I shouldn't have told her how much I had saved. I was bragging about it at Christmas. It's my fault she knew it was there." I slammed on the brakes, not hard enough to be dangerous, but hard enough to jerk the car to a stop at the red light. I turned to her. "Lila, look at me." She looked up, startled. "Do not ever say that again," I said. "If you walk down the street and someone mugs you, is it your fault for having a wallet? No, you earned that money. You were proud of it. And you should have been. Darlene knew it was there, and she made a conscious choice to drive to the bank, fill out a slip, and take it. You are 16. You are not responsible for the moral failures of a 60-year-old woman." Lila's eyes welled up. "But what if I can't go? Mrs. Gable said the payment is due Friday." "I got us until Monday," I said, putting the car back into gear as the light turned green. "We have a deadline, and we are going to make it." The clock was ticking. Monday at noon. That was 72 hours. I had the evidence. I had the rage. Now I just needed the money, or at least enough leverage to force Darlene to give it back before my daughter's seat on that plane was given to someone else. I drove us home, the folder on the passenger seat between us. It was thin, just a few sheets of paper, but it was the first brick in the wall I was building. Darlene thought she had solved her problem by taking Lila's money. All she had done was start a countdown. I sat in the dim light of the kitchen, the silence of the house pressing against my ears. My finger hovered over Brenna's name on my phone screen. I knew exactly how this conversation would go, but I had to make the call. I had to confirm the scope of the conspiracy. I needed to know if my sister was a bystander or an accomplice. I tapped the screen. It rang 4 times before she picked up. "What?" Brenna answered. "No hello. Just the annoyed tone of someone who felt the world was interrupting her very important existence." In the background, I could hear the tinny sound of upbeat pop music and the whir of a blow-dryer. "Did you know?" I asked. I didn't bother with pleasantries. "Did you know Mom took $4,200 out of Lila's account yesterday?" There was a pause on the line. The blow-dryer stopped. "Oh my God, Haley," Brenna groaned. "Are we really doing this right now? I am literally in the middle of my hair trial. Do you know how hard it is to get an appointment with Stefan?" "Answer the question, Brenna," I said, my voice flat. "Did you know that the money for your venue deposit came from your 16-year-old niece's babysitting fund?" "Look," she huffed, and I could practically see the eye roll. "Mom said she found a way to handle it. I didn't ask for the details. I have enough on my plate, okay? The florist just told me that hydrangeas might be out of season, and I am freaking out. I don't need you adding to my stress." "Your stress?" I laughed. A sharp, bitter sound. "Lila has been saving that money since she was 13. She is going to lose her spot on the trip to France by Monday because of this. So she goes next year," Brenna snapped. "God, you act like it is the end of the world. She is a kid. She has plenty of time to travel. My wedding is in June. This is happening now. It is a time-sensitive issue. Haley, can't you just be happy that things are finally working out for me? Just this once?" The narcissism was breathtaking. It was a solid wall of self-interest that no amount of logic could penetrate. To Brenna, Lila's 3 years of labor were just a loose, pitiful pile of cash that was better served funding her princess moment. "I need the name of the contact person at the venue," I said. "And I need the account number you guys are using." "Why?" Brenna's voice went sharp with suspicion. "So you can call and make a scene? So you can tell them my family is a mess? No way. Stay out of it. Haley, Mom handled it." She hung up. I stared at the phone. She didn't deny it. She didn't even sound guilty. She just sounded inconvenienced. Less than 30 seconds later, my phone buzzed again. Darlene, of course. The chain of command in the Ward family was instantaneous. Brenna complained to management, and management came down to crush the rebellion. "Leave your sister alone," Darlene said the moment I answered. Her voice was low, that dangerous, sugary tone she used when she was trying to keep the neighbors from hearing. "She knew," I said. "She knew exactly where that money came from. She is under a lot of pressure." "Haley," Darlene said, "every bride is. She doesn't need her older sister harassing her over finances. We did what we had to do. The deposit is paid. It is done. Now, I am asking you, no, I am telling you, do not ruin this for her. Don't go crying to the rest of the family and making us look bad. If you cause a scene, you are the one hurting this family, not me." I listened to her justification, the twisted logic that made me the villain for wanting my daughter's money back. I felt the familiar urge to scream, to fight, to list every single thing I had ever done for them. But then, I looked at the folder on the table. Lila/France. Screaming wouldn't get the money back by Monday. Strategy would. I took a deep breath and let my shoulders drop. I forced my voice to soften, to sound defeated. "You know what?" I exhaled into the phone. "You're right, Mom." The silence on the other end was stunned. Darlene had been ready for a fight. She wasn't ready for a surrender. I am?" she asked. "Yeah," I lied. "I'm just tired. I'm tired of fighting. Brenna's wedding is important. I guess I was just shocked. But it's done, right? The money is gone. There is no point in tearing the family apart over it." "Exactly," Darlene said, her voice instantly warming up, rushing into the void I had left open. "Oh, Haley, thank you. I knew you would understand. You have always been the sensible one. We will figure something out for Lila later, maybe for graduation." "Yeah," I said. "Maybe. I'm going to go to bed. Mom, tell Brenna I'm sorry I upset her." "I will. Honey, good night." I hung up. I sat there for a moment, feeling the adrenaline cool into ice in my veins. They thought they had won. They thought I had folded, just like I had folded 1,000 times before. They thought Haley the peacemaker had returned to duty. But Haley the peacemaker was dead. I opened my laptop again. I needed to find the weak point in their fortress. Brenna refused to give me the venue details, and Darlene was guarding the paperwork like a dragon. But they forgot one thing. I had been cleaning up their messes for a decade. I was the one who set up Darlene's email on her iPad. I was the one who organized Brenna's cloud storage when she lost her password. I didn't need to hack them. I just needed to remember. I started digging through my own email archives. I searched for wedding. Venue. June. Brenna. Hundreds of emails popped up. Links to dresses. Catering menus. Color palettes. I scrolled back. Past the recent drama. Back to 6 months ago. I remembered a frantic weekend last autumn. Brenna had been hysterical because her dream venue, the Vineyard Estate, was fully booked for June. She had cried for 2 days. Then, suddenly, she had stopped crying. Darlene had told me they worked it out. I clicked on a calendar invite from November. Site visit, Vineyard Estate. I had driven them. I remembered now. I had sat in the lobby while they toured the ballroom because I had to take a conference call for work. I narrowed my search. Vineyard Estate, and there it was. An email from November 12th. Not from Darlene, not from Brenna, from the venue coordinator. To me, I frowned. Why did I have a direct email from them? I clicked it open. Subject: Contract confirmation. Ward wedding. Dear Haley. Attached is the countersigned copy of the agreement for the June 14th hold. Thank you for expediting the initial security retainer. My heart hammered against my ribs. I opened the attachment. It was a PDF. I scrolled past the liability clauses, past the noise ordinances, down to the signature page. There, in black digital ink, was the signature for the financially responsible party, Haley Ward. The memory hit me like a physical blow. That day in the lobby, they had come out beaming. The coordinator had said they needed a credit card and a signature right then to lock the date because another couple was looking at it. Darlene had forgotten her wallet in the car. Brenna's card had been declined earlier that week at Starbucks. I had stepped up. I had slapped my card down and signed the paper to secure the date, just to stop the tears, just to get us out of there. It was a $500 hold, just a placeholder. I had told them to transfer the billing to Darlene later, and they said they would update the file. But looking at this document, I realized something crucial. They never sent a new contract. Darlene might be paying the bills now. She might be the one communicating with them. But legally? On paper? I was the client. I sat back in my chair, a slow, cold realization spreading through me. Darlene said she needed Lila's money for a deposit because of a cancellation. That was a lie. The date had been held for months. She used that money for something else. Maybe a payment installment that was overdue. Maybe an upgrade Brenna demanded. But it didn't matter what she used it for. What mattered was that I held the kill switch. I looked at the cancellation policy on page 4. The financially responsible party may cancel this agreement up to 90 days prior to the event date. All monies paid to date will be forfeit, less a standard administrative fee. We were in February. The wedding was in June. We were outside the 90-day window. I wasn't just a disgruntled sister anymore. I wasn't just a sad mom. I was the person who owned the contract for the most important day of Brenna's life. I picked up my phone and took a picture of the signature page. Then I took a picture of the cancellation clause. I didn't send them to Darlene. Not yet. You don't fire your biggest missile until you are sure it will end the war. I closed the laptop. The clock on the microwave read 3:15 in the morning. I was exhausted. But for the first time in 48 hours, I wasn't helpless. You want to talk about family? I whispered to the empty room. Let's talk about who really owns this family. I went upstairs to check on Lila. She was asleep, clutching her pillow. Her face relaxed in the oblivion of dreams. She didn't know yet that her mother had just found a nuclear weapon in an old email folder. I would get her money back, every single penny, or there would be no wedding to pay for. Sonia Vance did not look like the kind of lawyer you see on billboards next to the highway. She looked like a kindergarten teacher who had quit to become an assassin. Her office was small, smelling faintly of old paper and peppermint tea. And she spoke in a voice so soft you had to lean in to hear it. But as she flipped through Lila's black babysitting ledger, her eyes were sharp enough to cut glass. "This is meticulous," Sonia said, running a finger down the column where Lila had recorded a $40 tip from the Miller family. "Most small businesses don't keep records this clean." She placed the ledger on top of the stack of documents I had compiled. The bank statement showing the withdrawal, the copy of the cashier's check made out to Darlene, and the school's itinerary for the France trip. "So," Sonia said, clasping her hands, "here is the reality. Your mother had authorized access to the account. That is her shield. However, the money in that account can be proven to be the sole property of a minor, earned through labor. Misappropriating funds from a minor for personal use, especially when that minor is not your dependent, breaches fiduciary duty. We have a civil case for conversion of property. If we push hard enough, and depending on how she structured the withdrawal, we could argue theft by deception." Lila was sitting in the oversized leather chair, looking small. "Does that mean I have to sue my grandma?" "It means," Sonia said, turning to look directly at my daughter, "that you have rights. Being a grandmother is a biological status, not a legal permit to loot your savings." Sonia swiveled to her computer. The clicking of her keyboard was the only sound in the room for 5 minutes. Then, The printer whirred to life. She handed me a single sheet of heavy cream-colored paper. It was a formal demand letter. It stated the facts clearly. $4,200 was removed without the minor's consent. It demanded the full return of funds within 72 hours. Failure to comply would result in immediate filing of a civil suit and a formal report to the local authorities regarding financial exploitation. 72 hours, I said, reading the deadline. That would land us on Monday morning, just in time for the school transfer. Deliver it today, Sonia advised. Do not argue. Do not negotiate. You are just the courier. I drove straight to Darlene's house. I didn't park in the driveway. I parked on the street. Leaving the engine running, I told Lila to wait in the car with the doors locked. Walking up that walkway felt different this time. 2 days ago, I had walked up here as a daughter seeking an explanation. Today, I was walking up as a process server. I rang the bell. Darlene opened the door wearing an apron. Flour on her cheek. She was baking. Likely stress-baking muffins to drop off at neighbors' houses to maintain her image of the perfect matriarch. "Haley," she said, wiping her hands on a towel. She looked wary, scanning my face for signs of a fight. "I thought we settled things last night. I told you I would." I didn't let her finish. I held out the envelope. "What is this?" she asked, not taking it. "Take it," I said. She took it. Her fingers left a smudge of white flour on the expensive paper. She tore it open right there on the porch. I watched her eyes scan the header, Law Office of Sonia Vance, and then dart down to the bolded sum of money. "You got a lawyer?" she whispered. Her face went slack. "Haley, are you insane? You are threatening to sue your own mother?" "You have 72 hours, I said. The clock started when I printed that letter. "This is harassment." Darlene's voice rose, shrill and panicked. "You are trying to humiliate me. Does Brenna know about this?" "Read the letter, Mom," I said, stepping back off the porch. "If the money is back in Lila's account by Monday morning, the letter goes in the shredder. If not, it goes to the courthouse." "I don't have it," she screamed after me, abandoning all pretense of being the sweet old lady. "I already sent it to the vendors. You can't get blood from a stone." I stopped on the sidewalk. I didn't turn around. "Then you better find a way to make the stone bleed, or ask your favorite daughter to chip in." I got back in the car. Lila was watching me, wide-eyed. "Is she mad?" Lila asked. "She is terrified," I said, putting the car in gear. Because for the first time in her life, someone told her no in a language she can't manipulate. But I wasn't done. The demand letter was the warning shot. Now, I was going to launch the missile. I drove to a coffee shop a few miles away. I needed neutral ground. I bought Lila a hot chocolate and opened my laptop. I pulled up the photo I had taken of the contract signature page, the one proving I was the financially responsible party for the Vineyard estate. I drafted a new email. To Events Coordinator, The Vineyard Estate. From Haley Ward. Subject, Cancellation of Agreement. Ward/Miller Wedding. June 14th. I typed steadily, my fingers flying. I referenced the contract number. I referenced the cancellation clause on page 4. I stated clearly, as the signatory of the agreement, that I was exercising my right to cancel the event effective immediately. I requested that any recent payments made toward the balance be refunded according to their policy, and that the date be released. I didn't explain why. I didn't mention the theft. Business is business. My finger hovered over the send button. I thought about Brenna. I thought about the white dress she had been obsessing over since she was 5. I thought about the hydrangeas. Then I thought about Lila sitting in her room, counting pennies, believing she wasn't worth a trip to Paris. I clicked send. The response came 40 minutes later. "The efficiency of the wedding industry is ruthless. Dear Ms. Ward, we have received your request to cancel the event scheduled for June 14th. Per the contract terms, the date has been released back to our availability calendar. We will process the refund of the recent payment of $4,200, minus the administrative cancellation fee of $250. to the original payment method on file within 5 to 7 business days. I stared at the screen. It was done. The venue was gone, and the money, Lila's money, which Darlene had rushed to pay them, was now in limbo. Bouncing back, I printed the email. I folded it neatly and slid it into the folder next to the demand letter. When I picked Lila up from the table where she was studying, she looked at me anxiously. "Did you do more work?" "I did," I said. "I just made sure that if you aren't going to Paris, nobody is going to the vineyard." I drove us home with a strange sense of calm. The sun was setting, painting the sky in bruises of purple and orange. I pulled into the driveway and turned off the engine. "Go inside and get started on your homework," I told Lila. "I have one more message to send." Lila went inside. I sat in the quiet car and opened the family group chat. It was titled Award Women, with a stupid emoji of a lipstick and a heart. It was usually filled with Brenna's selfies and Darlene's inspirational quotes. I typed a single message. To everyone. The $4,200 taken from Lila's account was not a loan. It was unauthorized. I have formally requested its return via legal counsel. Additionally, as the contract holder for the wedding venue, I have canceled the reservation at the Vineyard Estate effectively immediately to prevent further financial liability. The date is gone. Do not contact Lila. Do not come to my house. If you want to fix this, talk to my lawyer. I hit send. Then I put the phone on Do Not Disturb, walked into my house, and locked the door behind me. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy with the pressure of a bomb that had just silently detonated across town. The silence I had engineered did not last long. In fact, it lasted exactly as long as it took for the cellular network to deliver my message to the 5 people in the group chat. Then, my phone, which sat face down on the kitchen island, began to vibrate with such violence that it sounded like a drill boring into the granite countertop. I did not pick it up. I watched the screen light up, turn off, and light up again in a strobe effect of incoming rage. Brenna was the first to break the sound barrier. Her name flashed across the screen for 3 solid minutes. When I didn't answer, the voicemails started rolling in. I listened to one of them on speaker, keeping the volume low so Lila wouldn't hear from the living room. It was just a high-pitched, guttural scream followed by the words, "You jealous cow," repeated, until the time limit cut her off. Then came the flying monkeys. My Aunt Sarah, who hadn't called me since Christmas of 2024, sent a text that was 3 paragraphs long. It didn't mention the theft. It didn't mention the forgery. It focused entirely on my moral failing. "How can you do this to your sister?" she wrote. "Family settles things privately. You are airing dirty laundry and humiliating your mother. This is unchristian and deeply selfish." Darlene played a different game. She didn't scream. She texted me a photo of us from when I was 10 years old, standing next to her at the beach. Underneath it, she wrote, "I gave you everything. I raised you to be kind. I don't know who this cold, bitter woman is, but she is destroying our family over money. Please, Haley, don't be unfilial." They were rewriting the narrative in real time, in their version of the story. The $4,200 didn't exist. The theft hadn't happened. The only event that mattered was that I, the villain, had canceled the wedding venue out of spite. I was the destroyer of happiness. Darlene was the martyr, and Brenna was the victim. Then, a number I didn't have saved popped up. It was Greg, Brenna's fiancé, Haley. "This is Greg. We need to talk. You can't just cancel a contract like that. We have people flying in. This is going to make us look like idiots. If this is about money, we can work out a payment plan. But you need to call the venue back right now and tell them it was a mistake." I laughed. It was a dark, hollow sound. A payment plan. Greg was worried about looking like an idiot, not realizing that he was marrying into a family that would cannibalize his finances before the honeymoon was over. I didn't reply. I just took a screenshot for the file. "Mom?" Lila called out from the living room. "My Instagram is blowing up." I walked in. Lila was holding her phone like it was a live grenade. "Aunt Brenna just commented on my last post, the one about the cat." I looked. There, under a picture of our tabby cat sleeping. Brenna had commented, "Tell your mom to stop ruining my life. I know you are reading this. Don't let her make you selfish too." "Block her," I said. "Block Grandma. Block Aunt Sarah. Block all of them. But, no buts," I said, taking the phone gently from her hands. "They are trying to get to me through you because they know I have stopped listening. It is a tactic. Block them right now." I watched her press the buttons, severing the digital ties. Then I went a step further. I called the main office at Crestview High. I knew the secretary, Mary. "Mary, this is Haley. I need to update Lila's emergency contact list effective immediately. No one is authorized to pick her up or visit her on campus except for me. Specifically, if Darlene Ward or Brenna Ward shows up, security is to be called. They are not to have access to her." Is everything okay, Haley?" Mary asked, her voice dropping to a whisper. "It is a domestic legal dispute," I said, using the formal language that shut down curiosity. "I just need to know the protocol is in place." "Consider it done," Mary said. 2 hours later, the doorbell rang. I checked the peephole. It was Darlene. She wasn't alone. She was carrying a large wicker basket wrapped in cellophane, filled with what looked like bath bombs and expensive chocolates. It was a peace offering, the kind she used to smooth over fights with neighbors she had offended. I opened the door, but I stood explicitly in the frame. Blocking the entrance, I did not unlock the screen door. "Haley," Darlene said, putting on a tragic, hopeful smile. "I brought these for you and Lila. Just a little something. Can I come in? It is freezing out here." "No," I said. Darlene's smile faltered. "Haley, be reasonable. I am your mother. We need to sit down and talk this out face to face. Not through lawyers, not through emails, just us girls." "There is nothing to talk about," I said. "You have the demand letter. You have 50 hours left." "Stop it with the hours," Darlene snapped, the mask slipping. "You are acting like a loan shark. I came here to apologize for the misunderstanding. I shouldn't have done it without asking, okay? I said it. I'm sorry. Now let me in so we can fix the venue issue." "You aren't sorry you took it," I said. "You are sorry I found the kill switch, and the venue isn't an issue. It is canceled. That is a closed matter." "You are evil," she hissed, stepping closer to the mesh. "You are enjoying this. You want to see your sister cry." "I want my daughter to go to France," I corrected. "Goodbye, Mom." I shut the door and locked the deadbolt. I leaned against the wood, listening to her shout something about blood being thicker than water, before she finally stormed off to her car. 10 minutes later, my phone pinged with a notification from my bank app. "You have received a transfer of $1,200 from Darlene Ward." There was a memo attached to the transfer. "For Lila. Paying you back. Please call the venue." I stared at the number. 1,200. It was less than 30% of what she stole. It was a classic manipulation tactic. The crumb. She threw me a crumb so she could tell everyone she had paid me back. So she could claim she was trying, and that I was the unreasonable one for demanding the full amount. I walked into the living room and showed the phone to Lila. "Grandma sent money," I said. Lila's eyes lit up for a fraction of a second, then dimmed as she read the number. "That's not all of it," she said. "No," I said. "It is barely enough to cover the airfare deposit. She is holding the rest hostage. She thinks if she gives us this, we will back down and let her keep the other 3,000. Lila looked at the screen, then at me. The last remnants of childhood hope seemed to evaporate from her face. She realized what I had known for years. They weren't scrambling to find the money. They had money. They just didn't want to give it to her. They were negotiating with her future like it was a used car trade-in. "Don't take it," Lila said. "I will take it," I said. "But I am not marking the debt as paid. This just confirms she has access to funds." I sat down next to her. "Monday is coming. Lila. They think this $1,200 buys them forgiveness. It doesn't. It just buys them a little more time before the hammer drops." I opened my laptop and logged the payment into the spreadsheet. February 6th. Partial restitution. $1,200. Balance remaining. $3,000. I didn't call the venue. I didn't call Brenna. I didn't thank Darlene. I simply printed the receipt of the transfer and added it to the file. This wasn't a family dispute anymore. It was evidence collection. And if they thought tossing a few $100s my way would stop the legal train I had set in motion, they were about to be very disappointed. The file was getting thicker, and my patience was gone. The revelation sat on Sonia Vance's mahogany desk like a loaded weapon. I stared at the photocopy of the cleared cashier's check, feeling the blood drain from my face. My mother had told me, with tears in her eyes and a quiver in her voice, that the money was for the wedding venue. She had sworn on her status as a matriarch that it was a deposit to secure Brenna's happiness, but the ink on the back of the check told a different story. The check had not been endorsed by the Vineyard Estate. It had been endorsed by an entity called Pinnacle Quick Cash Solutions. "It is a high-interest lending firm," Sonia said, her voice devoid of judgment but heavy with implication. "They specialize in bridge loans for people who have exhausted traditional credit lines. Usually, people go there when they are desperate." I looked at the date stamp. The check had been cashed 45 minutes after Darlene walked out of the bank with Lila's money. "She didn't pay the venue," I whispered. "She paid a debt." "It appears so," Sonia said. "The money did not go to a wedding. It went into a black hole." I felt a wave of nausea. This wasn't just theft anymore. It was a cover-up. Darlene had used Brenna's wedding as a frantic emotional shield to hide a financial collapse that none of us knew existed. She had looked her granddaughter in the eye and stolen her dreams not to throw a party, but to save her own skin from a loan shark. "There is more," Sonia said. She opened a folder on her laptop and turned the screen toward me. "Since we established that Darlene had unauthorized access, I took the liberty of auditing the account activity going back 12 months. You were focused on the $4,200, but you missed the leaks." I leaned in. Sonia pointed to a series of small, innocuous transactions scattered over the last year: $20, $40, $15.50. They were labeled vaguely, POS, transaction or service fee. They were small enough to look like lunch money or subscription renewals, the kind of noise you ignore on a monthly statement. "She was testing the fence," I said, the realization making my hands cold. "She was checking to see if I was watching." "Precisely," Sonia said. "She started small. When you didn't flag the $20, she took 40. When you didn't flag the 40, she felt safe. The 4,000 was not a sudden impulse. Haley, it was the graduation." I left Sonia's office with a directive to gather every scrap of financial data I could find. When I got home, I didn't just look at the bank account. I logged into the credit monitoring service I had signed Lila up for during the freeze. The report had generated a full history. I scrolled past the no activity markers, expecting a clean slate. Lila was 16. She shouldn't have a history. Then I saw it. A red flag dated 6 months ago. Inquiry. Capital One Platinum Card. Status: denied. Reason: applicant age below legal limit. My breath caught in my throat. My mother hadn't just stolen the cash. She had tried to open a credit card in Lila's name. She had tried to leverage her granddaughter's clean Social Security number to get access to a fresh line of credit. The only thing that had stopped her was the automated age verification system. If Lila had been 18, Darlene would have maxed out a card in her name before we even knew it existed. This was not a grandmother helping a family. This was a parasite feeding on a host. My phone rang. It was Brenna. I stared at the screen. I had blocked her on texts, but I had left the voice line open for emergencies. This felt like an emergency. "What do you want?" I answered, skipping the hello. "Mom is acting weird," Brenna said. Her voice was shaky, stripped of its usual entitlement. "She is in her bedroom crying, and she keeps talking about losing the house. Haley, what did you do to her?" "I didn't do anything," I said, "but I know what she did." "She sent you the money, right?" Brenna asked, desperate for reassurance. "She said she sent you over $1,000. Why are you still angry?" Brenna, listen to me, I said, my voice steady. The money she took didn't go to your wedding venue. I have the check image. She paid it to a predatory lender. She owes money. A lot of it. What? Brenna laughed nervously. That is crazy. Mom doesn't have debt. She has the pension. She has the house. She tried to open a credit card in Lila's name 6 months ago, I said, dropping the second bomb. She has been siphoning money from Lila's account in small amounts for a year. The wedding? It was just the excuse she used to grab the big pile. She used you, Brenna. She used your wedding to justify stealing $4,000 to pay off her own mess. There was a long silence on the other end. I could hear Brenna breathing, the slow, ragged breaths of someone whose reality is fracturing. No, Brenna whispered. She told me she put the deposit down. She showed me the email. She lied, I said. Or she faked it. There is no deposit. There is no venue. And there is no money. Brenna hung up. I sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by the physical evidence of my mother's betrayal. I felt a strange sense of detachment. I wasn't sad anymore. I was operating on pure survival instinct. I was a surgeon cutting out a tumor. Lila walked in the front door a few minutes later. She threw her backpack on the sofa and looked at me. She saw the papers spread out on the table. The check image, the credit report, the highlighted bank statements. Is it bad? She asked. It is worse than we thought, I said. I motioned for her to sit down. I didn't sugarcoat it. I didn't try to protect her from the truth, because the truth was the only thing that could protect her now. I showed her the check endorsement. I showed her the denied credit application. Lila looked at the papers for a long time. When she looked up, her face was different. The hurt was gone. The confusion was gone. In their place was a hard, clear resolve. She looked older. She tried to steal my name, Lila said. It wasn't a question. Yes, I said. She didn't care about the trip, Lila said, her voice flat. She didn't even care about Aunt Brenna's wedding. She just needed money. Yes. Lila stood up. She walked over to the fridge where we kept a magnetic calendar. She took the magnet off the date for her flight to France. She held it in her hand for a second, then put it back, firmly. Mom, she said, I don't want to just ask for the money back anymore. What do you want to do? I asked. I want to make sure she can never do this to anyone else, Lila said. She isn't safe. She struggled for the word. She is dangerous. I nodded. My daughter had reached the finish line of childhood and crossed over into the brutal world of adult accountability. I picked up the phone and called Sonia. We are not waiting for the 72 hours, I said. She is insolvent. She is engaging in identity fraud. If we wait, the money will be gone forever. If it isn't already. What are your instructions? Sonia asked. File the report, I said. Not just the civil demand. File the report for identity theft regarding the credit application, and send a formal notice to Brenna that she is potentially liable as a beneficiary of stolen funds if she accepts any more help from Darlene. This will torch the earth. Haley, Sonia warned. Once we file a fraud report involving a minor's identity, the police get involved. This becomes a criminal investigation. I looked at Lila, standing straight and tall in the kitchen, her eyes dry and fierce. The earth is already on fire, I said. I am just controlling the burn. The email from the school arrived on Friday morning at 9 o'clock sharp. It was automated, polite, and absolutely terrifying. Subject: Final reminder. Payment due for France excursion. Dear parent/guardian, this is a reminder that the first installment of $1,500 for the spring cultural trip is due by Monday, February 9th, at 12 p.m. Failure to secure this deposit will result in the student's removal from the roster and the seat being offered to the wait list. I read it twice. The clock wasn't just ticking anymore. It was hammering. Lila had seen the notification, too. I found her in the kitchen, staring at her phone, her face pale. She didn't say anything. She just looked at me with that same expression she used to have when she was 5 and broke a vase, waiting for the bad news. waiting for the adult to tell her that actions have consequences, even if the actions weren't hers. "It is okay," I said, putting my coffee mug down with a deliberate thud. "We are handling it." "Mom," Lila said, her voice thin, "it is $3,000. We don't have it. Grandma isn't going to send it. I know that. You know that. Maybe I should just email Mrs. Gable and tell her I am out." "You are not out," I said fiercely. "You are going." I had a decision to make. I had an emergency fund. It was meant for a new roof or a transmission failure, not for bailing out my mother's crimes. If I just paid the school quietly, Darlene would win. She would spin the narrative that Haley handled it, and the theft would be swept under the rug of family obligation. I would be the safety net again, catching the falling debris of Darlene's life while she walked away unscathed. But I couldn't let Lila fall. "Get your laptop," I told Lila, "and get a pen." I went to my bedroom and retrieved my checkbook. I wrote a check to Crestview High School for the full deposit amount. Then, I sat down at the computer and typed up a document. It wasn't a school form. It was a promissory note. I, Haley Ward, am advancing the sum of $1,500 to the estate of Lila Ward to cover immediate educational expenses due to the unauthorized removal of funds by Darlene Ward. This payment is not a gift, nor is it a forgiveness of the debt owed by Darlene Ward. It is a bridge loan to be reimbursed immediately upon the recovery of the stolen assets. "What is this?" Lila asked, reading the screen. "This," I said, printing 2 copies, "is proof that I am not covering for her. I am paying for your trip. But on paper, the loss still exists. We are not erasing the crime. We are just stopping the bleeding." I signed it. I made Lila sign it as a witness. Then we drove to the school and dropped off the check. The secretary stamped the receipt, and just like that, Lila was safe, but the war was far from over. By Saturday afternoon, Darlene realized that her peace offering of $1,200 hadn't worked. I hadn't called off the lawyer. I hadn't unblocked her. So, she shifted tactics. She moved from bribery to emotional excavation. Since she couldn't text me, she sent a package via courier. It arrived at 2 in the afternoon. Inside was not money, but a framed photograph. It was a picture of me when I was 7 years old, sitting on Darlene's lap on a porch swing. I looked adoringly at her. She looked young and beautiful. Tucked into the frame was a handwritten note on her personalized stationery. "I remember when you used to look at me with love, not hate. I sold my engagement ring to pay for your braces when you were 12. I scrubbed floors to buy you that prom dress. Families help each other. Haley, we don't sue each other. Please, don't destroy me over money." I looked at the photo. I remembered that day. I remembered that 5 minutes after the photo was taken. She had slapped me for spilling iced tea on her white skirt. "She is good," I muttered, placing the photo face down on the counter. "She is really good." She was trying to leverage the ghostly currency of motherhood to pay a debt of hard cash. She wanted me to feel like the ungrateful child. She wanted me to believe that her past sacrifices gave her a line of credit on my daughter's future. Then came the compromise. Brenna managed to get through to me by calling from Greg's phone. I answered, thinking it might be a revelation about the money. "Haley, don't hang up," Brenna said, rushing her words. "I have a solution. Greg and I talked. We can't give you the $3,000 right now because we lost the deposit on the venue when you canceled it. Thanks for that, by the way. But we can pay Lila back. We can do $100 a month. We will set up an auto draft. Greg is willing to sign for it." I did the math in my head. $100 a month. It would take 2.5 years to repay what was stolen in 2 minutes. "And in exchange?" I asked. "In exchange, you call the venue and tell them it was a misunderstanding so we can get our date back," Brenna said. "And you tell that lawyer to stop threatening Mom with a fraud report. She is having heart palpitations. Haley, you are literally killing her." "No," I said. "What do you mean?" "No," Brenna screeched. "We are offering to pay." "Lila's money is not a bargaining chip," I said, my voice shaking with the effort to stay calm. You don't get to buy back your wedding venue with an installment plan on stolen goods. The money comes back in full, today, or the police report gets filed on Monday morning. Those are the terms. You are a monster, Brenna shouted. You don't care about the money. You just want to punish us. I care that you think you can negotiate with a crime, I said, and hung up. Sunday evening was heavy. The 72-hour deadline from the demand letter would expire the next morning. Sonia had already emailed me the draft of the official complaint. We were going to file for civil conversion and identity theft. It was the nuclear option. It would mean police interviews. It would mean Darlene might face charges. It would mean the family was over, permanently. I sat with Lila in the living room. I was setting up a new bank account for her online, one with two-factor authentication linked only to my phone, and a password that was a random string of 20 characters. There, I said, turning the laptop to her. This is yours. High-yield savings. No joint owners. No grandmas. Only you and me. Lila looked at the screen. She didn't smile. She looked at me with huge, watery eyes. Mom, she said softly, can I ask you something? Anything, I said. I really thought you were going to make me give it up, she whispered. When we were in the car driving to her house, I thought you were going to go in there, yell a little bit, and then come out and tell me that we had to be the bigger people. I thought you were going to make me swallow it for the sake of the family, like you always do. The words hit me harder than Darlene's guilt trip ever could. It was a mirror held up to my past. She was right. For 16 years, she had watched me swallow insults, debts, and disrespect to keep the peace. She had learned that being a ward woman meant being a doormat. I reached out and took her hands. They were cold. I am sorry, I said. I am sorry I taught you that peace was more important than justice. I was wrong. I promise you, Lila, I will never ask you to shrink yourself for them again. We are not swallowing this. We are spitting it out. Lila squeezed my hand back. It was the first time in days I felt her relax. She finally believed me. I sent her to bed at 10 o'clock. I stayed up, staring at the clock. 11 p.m. The deadline was so close. The house was quiet. But my mind was loud with doubt. Was I doing the right thing? Was sending my mother to court too far? Then, my phone buzzed. It was a text message. Not from Darlene. Not from Brenna. It was from Aunt Sarah, my mother's sister, the one who had sent me the hateful text on Friday calling me unchristian. I picked up the phone, expecting another sermon, but it wasn't a sermon. It was a screenshot of a text conversation. Haley, look at this. I think you need to see this before you do anything tomorrow. I opened the screenshot. It was a conversation between Aunt Sarah and Darlene, dated from just a few hours ago. Sarah. Darlene, I am worried. Did you send the money I wired you to Haley? You said if I loaned you the $4,000, this would all go away. Darlene, I am going to send it, but not yet. I want her to sweat a little longer. She humiliated me canceling that venue. She needs to learn that she can't control me. I'll transfer it to Lila next week after she apologizes. I stared at the screen. The air left my lungs. My mother wasn't broke. She wasn't desperate. She wasn't paying off a loan shark with the only money she had. She had already been bailed out. Aunt Sarah had sent her the money to fix this, $4,000, and Darlene was sitting on it. She was hoarding the cash, letting her granddaughter terrified she would miss her trip, letting me scramble to sell assets, all out of pure, vindictive spite. She had the money. She just wanted me to beg for it. I saved the image. I backed it up to the cloud. I printed it. The hesitation vanished. The guilt vanished. The question of, is this too far, evaporated into the cold night air. I wasn't just filing a lawsuit tomorrow. I was going to war with a woman who would hold a child's future ransom for an apology she didn't deserve. Okay, Mom, I whispered to the empty room. You want me to sweat? Let's see how you handle the heat. I forwarded the screenshot to Sonia with a single line of instruction. Add this to the filing. Malice and willful retention of stolen property. Proceed with everything. The conference room at Sonia Vance's law office was sterile. It smelled of lemon polish and binding glue. We sat on one side of the long glass table, Lila, Sonia, and me. On the other side sat Darlene and Brenna. My mother was wearing a pastel cardigan and a look of profound, wounded martyrdom, clutching a tissue she did not need. Brenna looked less like a bride-to-be and more like a cornered animal, her eyes darting between the door and the stack of files Sonia had placed in the center of the table. It was Monday morning, 10 o'clock, the deadline. "We are not here to argue," Sonia began. Her voice was terrifyingly calm. She didn't open with a speech. She opened with paper. She slid the first document across the glass. It was the withdrawal slip. On February 4th, $4,200 was removed from the account of a minor, Sonia stated. Darlene sighed, a heavy, theatrical sound. "We have been over this. It was a family loan for the wedding venue. I sent Haley $1,200 already. I am doing my best. Why are we treating this like a criminal trial?" Sonia didn't blink. She slid the second document across. It was the photocopy of the cashier's check, front and back. "This is the check you had issued," Sonia said. "You claimed it was for the Vineyard Estate. However, the endorsement on the back is not from a wedding venue. It is from Pinnacle Quick Cash Solutions." The room went deadly silent. I watched Brenna's face. She froze. She looked at the paper, then at her mother. "Pinnacle?" Brenna asked, her voice trembling. "Mom, isn't that the payday loan place on 4th Street? Darlene stiffened. "It is a financial services company. Brenna, I had to move some funds around to clear the deposit. It is complicated." "It is not complicated," I said. I spoke for the first time, leaning forward. "You didn't pay for the wedding. Mom, you paid off a loan shark. You took Lila's trip money to cover a personal debt you have been hiding." "I did it for the family," Darlene snapped, abandoning the victim act for pure defensive anger. "I got behind on the mortgage, okay? I took a small loan to cover the property taxes so we wouldn't lose the house where Brenna is getting ready for her big day. The interest rates were eating me alive. I just needed to clear it. I was going to put the money back before anyone noticed." "So the wedding was a lie," Brenna whispered. She looked sick. "You told me you paid the deposit. You let me believe everything was handled, but you just used my wedding as an excuse to steal from Lila because you knew Haley wouldn't say no to a wedding expense." "I was protecting you," Darlene shouted. "I didn't want you to worry about money." "You made me an accomplice to theft," Brenna said. Standing up, her hands were shaking. "Greg is furious. He thinks we are all con artists. You used me as a shield." Sonia raised a hand, cutting through the family drama. She had one more card to play, the card I had given her last night. She slid the screenshot of the text conversation between Darlene and Aunt Sarah across the table. "We also know," Sonia said, "that you are currently in possession of $4,000 wired to you by Sarah Miller specifically to resolve this restitution. You received these funds on Saturday. You have chosen to withhold them." Darlene looked at the screenshot. Her face drained of color. The narrative she had built, that she was a struggling grandmother trying to make ends meet, collapsed instantly. She wasn't broke. She was spiteful. She was holding the money hostage because she wanted me to crawl. I looked my mother in the eye. "You have the money," I said. "You have had it for 2 days, and you let Lila sit at home, terrified she was going to be kicked off her trip, just to teach me a lesson." Darlene didn't answer. She looked down at her hands, twisting her rings. "Here are the terms," Sonia said. She pushed a final document forward. It was a settlement agreement. "You will transfer the remaining balance of $3,000 immediately. You will also cover the legal fees of $500 for drafting this agreement. In exchange, Haley will not file the police report for identity theft regarding the credit card application you attempted to open in Lila's name." Brenna gasped. "She did what?" "She tried to open a credit card in Lila's name," I told my sister without looking away from my mother. 6 months ago, Brenna picked up her purse. She looked at Darlene with a mixture of horror and pity. "I can't be here," Brenna said. "I can't. I need to go." She walked out. Darlene was alone. The silence stretched. The air conditioner hummed. Darlene finally reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. She didn't look at me. She tapped the screen aggressively, her mouth set in a hard, bitter line. "There," she said, slamming the phone onto the table. "I sent it. $3,500. Are you happy now? You destroyed this family over money. I hope you are proud of yourself." I checked my phone. The notification was there. Funds received. "I didn't destroy the family, Mom," I said quietly. "I just turned on the lights, and you hate what we can see now." "You are cold," Darlene spat. "You used to be such a sweet girl. Now you are just hard." "I had to be," I said, "to protect her from you." I signed the settlement agreement. Sonia notarized it. It included a permanent no-contact order regarding Lila's finances and a stipulation that Darlene was removed from all authorized lists at the school and the bank. We walked out of the office into the bright, blinding sunlight of the parking lot. The air tasted different, cleaner. Lila was holding her phone. She looked at me. "Is it really over?" "It is over," I said. "We got it all back." Lila didn't scream. She didn't jump up and down. She just let out a long, shaky breath, and her shoulders dropped 3 inches. She pulled up her email and sent the confirmation to Mrs. Gable. Payment submitted in full. I watched her face as she hit send. It wasn't the joy of a child getting a toy. It was the relief of a person who had been drowning and finally broke the surface. She looked at me, and her eyes were fierce and clear. "Thank you," she said, "for not making me be nice." "You never have to be nice to a thief," I said, "even if she is your grandmother." 6 months later, I was sitting on my back porch with a glass of iced tea. The house was quiet. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from WhatsApp. "Lila." I opened the message. It was a photo. She was standing in front of the Eiffel Tower. The sky was a brilliant, impossible blue. She was wearing a trench coat we had bought together at the outlet mall, and she was smiling. It wasn't the polite, tight smile she had worn for years at Darlene's dinner table. It was a real smile, a smile that reached her eyes. She held a croissant in one hand and gave a thumbs up with the other. Underneath the photo, she had written, "Worth every penny. Love you. Mom." I zoomed in on her face. She looked free. I thought about Darlene. I hadn't spoken to her since that day in the office. I heard from Aunt Sarah that Darlene was telling everyone I had abandoned her in her old age. I heard Brenna had postponed the wedding and was going to therapy. I didn't care. I put the phone down and looked out at the yard. For years, I thought family meant access. I thought it meant giving people the key to your house and your heart. No matter how much mud they tracked in, I thought love was about endurance. I was wrong. Family is not a right. It is a privilege. It is built on respect, not DNA, and looking at that photo of my daughter, standing tall in Paris, paid for with her own sweat, and defended by my refusal to yield. I knew we were going to be just fine. We were smaller now, just the 2 of us, but we were whole, and that was worth more than any piece I had ever kept. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from today. So please drop a comment below and share your thoughts on how Haley handled her mother. Did she go too far? Or was it exactly what Darlene deserved? If you enjoyed this story, please make sure to subscribe to the Nina Revenge Stories channel, like this video, and smash that hype button to help this story reach more people who might need the courage to set their own boundaries. See you in the next video.